Hey, welcome to 209coach.com. I want to do a video for you today on how to apply this move for an elite load, for an elite resistance, elite pullback. And everything starts with a great setup. And I drew some lines here for you so you can kind of get an idea of what I want you to do. And if you watch any elite player from a direct opposite side batter's box view, you're going to see very similar angles. And by that I mean you're going to see the hands pretty much between the neck and the deltoid. You see here that I drew two lines, one line here going close to his neck, the other one here is going to be close to his deltoid. Okay, so anything between the neck and the deltoid right here, if your hands are higher right here or even lower right here, is fine, but you don't want your hands out here. Okay, when you start doing that, you start doing compensations, you start doing things that is going to cause a domino effect for you not to apply this particular move correctly. Okay, so what I want you to do also is make sure that all you have is yourself, a bat, and a mirror, okay, or a reflection, okay? Make sure that you're doing this in front of a reflection, because if not, what you think you're doing and what you think you're applying, trust me, you're probably not. So the way you want this to work is you want to see what you're doing, you want to feel what you're doing at the same time. That's how the body starts to make adjustments, by seeing the correct way, by mimicking, emulating what the best players in the world do. So this is why I want you to do this in front of a mirror, and you want to do it very slowly, and you want to do it very methodically, okay? Now, to create this move that I just mentioned to you, what I want you to do, once you have this set up correctly, and as you get into the apex of your gather, this is what I want you to do, okay? So what happens in elite players, what they do when they get ready to hit, they lift their front leg, and what they do kind of a little transfer of the body. Right here, he's at the apex of the gather, okay? Now, for the sake of those of you who have a high leg kick, or those of you who lift their front leg at the apex of the gather like most people do, all I want you to do is get your front foot and just bring it down so it's basically just touching the ground with your toes. So in other words, you're being able to balance yourself, okay? That's what I want you to do, because at the apex of the gather is when everything pretty much reaches where the body should stop, okay? It's the apex where the body stops moving back and everything now starts to work forward. So again, just to show you what I want you to do, here he is at setup, right? It's just real simple. He's at setup. As he starts to get ready, watch, he's going to lift his front leg. He's right here at the apex of the gather. And a couple of things you should be looking at the apex of the gather, okay? And again, for simplicity, just get your front foot and let it just tap the ground so you can balance yourself. Here's what you should be looking at the apex of the gather. You want your hands, and again, I bring this up in my videos all the time, to be right in front of your back foot. You don't want it to be out here. That's going to create a domino effect. Some players I see have it way out here where their hands are way out here. You want, as soon as you lift your front leg, when you're doing this in front of a mirror, make sure that your hands stop pretty much directly in front of your back foot, just like you see here with this player right here, okay? Another thing you're going to see here, where his hands are, they're right there by the armpit area, okay? And this is really important, because what you want to do once you get to the toe touch a heel plant area, you want your hands pretty much in this area right here, all right? That's really important. Now, another thing you want is when you get to the apex of the gather, you still want to have your bat pretty much how you had it as setup, and you still want to have pretty much a lot of flexion in your arms right here, okay? In other words, you don't want any pullback yet while you're getting into the apex of the gather. Again, I cannot emphasize this enough. You do not want any pullback as you're getting into the apex of the gather. That does not occur until you start your forward move. Now, one thing I want to show you here with this player here, which is a really just beautiful mechanics right here. Watch what he does with his lower body. Just pay attention right here, pretty much to this area right here where his build is, okay? And this is really important, and I bring this up all the time. As time goes on, pitchers are becoming more elite, whether it be softball or baseball, and you want to keep your swing as simple as possible. Watch what happens when he lifts his front leg. He gets into the apex of the gather. You can see here that his tailbone is starting to rotate. In other words, his back of the hip area, where I mentioned, is not working towards the catcher. If anything, you can see is starting to work forward, okay? This is really important. And the way you do this, while you're doing this drill, when you lift your front leg, immediately try to get your tailbone as you're getting into the apex of the gather. Again, you're going to put your foot down right here, like I just mentioned, and you should feel like your tailbone is starting to rotate kind of towards the pitcher, okay? You do not want it working back towards the catcher, okay? So just like I just mentioned, this is the drill that I want you to do. I want you to draw or get some tape and put a circle right where your hands are, okay? Now again, you're at the apex of the gather. And again, at this stage of the swing, at the apex of the gather, it is crucial that your bat is still pretty vertical, okay? In other words, you don't want your bat down here like this, what I see a lot of players doing. You still want it pretty vertical, and again, you want to have a lot of flexion in your arms at this stage still. There's no pullback going on yet. Again, this is the apex of the gather. Now, as you start to get into your forward move, watch what happens here. Pay attention to the hands. As he starts to stride, look at the hands. Watch what's going on right here. As he gets into his toe touch, he's walking away from the hands, okay? And now you can see here, his body here, and I'm going to just back this up for you again at the apex of the gather. Pay attention to what's going on here. At this stage of the swing, as he starts to get into his apex of the gather, watch how much flexion there's in his arm. And again, pay attention to what's going on with the bat. Now, as he starts to stride, he pretty much leaves his hands right there as his body starts to transfer, and there's been a process that's taken place right here. Now, he went from having a lot of flexion to minimal flexion in his arms, and if you do this correctly, this is the way you should look. And look at the bat. The bat went from being here to being here, okay? So again, pay attention, and we're going to just do this slowly and methodically for you. In order for you to do this drill correctly, we're going to get to the setup, right? We're going to just do this just again, very slowly and methodically. You're going to lift the front foot. You're going to get to the apex of the gather. You're going to just let your front foot drop so you can get to the apex of the gather. Your bat should still be vertical. Look at what's going on with his front arm. You can see here that he still has quite a bit of flexion. As he starts to take a stride, his back elbow, the top hand is pulling back as he leaves his hands there, as he gets into his stride, and you can see here that there's been a transition that's happened with his lead arm. It went from having a lot of flexion to minimal flexion. And this is, you're going to know if you did it correctly, because your body's going to feel like it's kind of working downhill as you're pulling back. Again, the key as you're doing this drill, you want to get your tailbone, and you want to have it as soon as you lift the front foot, you want it being rotating towards the pitcher, okay? And you're going to be pulling back, and if you have that circle in your mirror, in the reflection, you want to leave your hands there by the height of the armpit as you're pulling back and applying that coil of the back hip, the back leg. You want to make sure that you're walking away from the hands. Now, this drill right here is a great drill for you just to start understanding what it feels like to have great resistance and great power, and just a beautiful technique that the best players in the world use. You get to the apex of the gather, and all you're doing is striding. Notice what's going on right here, and this is one way you'll be able to check if you're doing it correctly. Now, notice right here what's going on with the logo of his hat right here, okay? There's the logo of his hat, and you can see he's at the apex of the gather. You can see that definitely that his body has transferred, like it's kind of working downhill. Now you can see that the logo is right here, okay? So you definitely want to have a little bit of weight transfer going forward, but the key here, for all of you out here doing this drill, I just really want you to make sure that when you're doing this drill, that you're just leaving the hands there as you're pulling back. And again, it's by the height of the armpit. And watch his lower body again. You never see, even from the setup, it's never working backwards. It's always, the hips are coiling, working forward. He's leaving his hands there. Top hand pull back. Top hand pull back, get to the apex of the gather, and just over and over. And once you get to the point where you transferred your weight and you go from having a lot of flexion in your lead arm to minimal flexion with a pullback, you know that you're doing it right. Another checkpoint is when you look in the mirror, what I want you to have, again, this is real important. I bring this up in my videos all the time. You want to have kind of, let me erase this little thing right here. You want to have a shoulder to shoulder the top of your back elbow, all pretty much in a straight line, and it should be pointing pretty much, if you're a left-hander, to the area of the shortstop area. That is caused by the pullback, by the resistance, okay? What you don't want to have is, what a lot of players do, is their shoulders are pretty much still pointing towards the pitcher and their back elbow is down here like this at toe touch, okay? Another thing to look to as a checkpoint as you get into your toe touch, notice how his belt buckle is pointing pretty much in this area. The reason why is because of the coiling of the back hip where it's rotating and it's going towards the pitcher. If you do this, again, if you do this drill correctly, what you should have is a setup with the hands between the neck and the deltoid, a lot of flexion. You're going to get to the apex of the gather. You're going to drop your back foot. You're going to put that circle in the mirror. You're going to walk away from the hands. You're going to be pulling back as your tailbone is rotating towards the pitcher. You're going to leave the hands there, walk away from the hands, go from a lot of flexion to minimal flexion as you feel like you're working downhill. Now, please give me a like if you like this video. I guarantee you this, if you're not doing this, and if you do this every day and you work on that pullback and maintain the pullback, maintain it as you get into your heel plant, I promise you that you will start to gain power that you've never had before. Again, please give me a like, and thank you so much for watching. Subscribe to my channel. Everyone, have a great day. Thank you so much.